Hey guys, how's it going? This is Waj, and in this video we're doing a direct hands-on full comparison of the new iPhone 6 versus the Samsung Galaxy S5. So if you're interested in how these two phones compare head-to-head against each other, we're going to have a hands-on comparison to go through most of the aspects that most people are interested about and to figure out whether either of these phones are right for them. So stay tuned and let's get right into this comparison. Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about is the overall dimensions and the physical differences between these two devices. Now, side by side, the iPhone 6 measures about 138.1 millimeters in terms of its height and about 67 millimeters in terms of its width. Now, the Samsung Galaxy S5 is slightly larger overall, measuring about 142 millimeters in terms of its height and about 72.5 millimeters in terms of its width. Now, if we take a look at the thickness between them, the iPhone 6 is insanely thin, measuring just under 6.9 millimeters versus the S5 measures about 8.1 millimeters. Now, interestingly, even though the S5 is made out of polycarbonate plastics, it's still quite a bit heavier than the iPhone 6, measuring about 145 grams versus the iPhone 6's very light 128 grams. Now, in terms of the overall design and build quality, again, the iPhone 6 is certainly superior than the S5, made out of really high quality aluminum construction. And the chassis and the overall shape of the phone is very ergonomic. It feels very comfortable in the hand, and I think this overall screen size of 4.7 inches is a perfect form factor. I love the rounded edges. It just feels very comfortable in the hand compared to the Samsung Galaxy S5's larger overall body size and less ergonomic body shape. Now, when we look at durability, I do have to give it to the Samsung Galaxy S5 in terms of being IP67 certified, so you can dip this thing underwater and still be protected from most damage. Unfortunately, the iPhone doesn't have that official certification, and it's certainly not waterproof by any means, but it is really well made and it can stand its own in brief splashes of water, so it is splash proof in that case. Now, in terms of the glass on these two devices, both are really made in a similar process. Unfortunately, we do not have a sapphire crystal display on the new iPhone 6. Hopefully, we'll see that display and glass technology implemented in later smartphones down the road, but currently both of these phones actually have a standard Corning Gorilla Glass display spec, so they're pretty resistant in terms of most scratches in your day-to-day use. Of course, if you drop them from a certain height, they will crack, so be always mindful of that. Now, in terms of color options, on the iPhone 6 we obviously have the standard space gray, silver, and gold options, and the Samsung Galaxy S5 definitely has a little bit more options in terms of colors. You have charcoal black, copper gold, as you see in my device right now, electric blue, and also shimmering white. Now, moving forward, looking at the displays of these two smart devices, where you're going to notice that the Samsung Galaxy S5 definitely has the better overall resolution and the overall screen, in my opinion. It's using a 1920 by 1080 screen with a PPI count of 432 versus the iPhone 6 that has a native resolution of 1334 by 750 and it has a PPI about 326, which is very similar to the experience that you would get on a Apple iPhone 5S from last year. Just slight improvements in terms of making the screen a little bit more viewable in brightly sunlit conditions and things like that. But in terms of the overall image experience of these two displays, I definitely have to give it to the Samsung Galaxy S5. It has a Super AMOLED display, which is capable of displaying the theoretical same amount of 16 million colors as the iPhone, but since it has that AMOLED technology, you're going to be able to have pretty much a infinite contrast ratio where it'll actually turn off areas that don't need to be displayed, so you have the deepest black levels you can possibly imagine. OLED is certainly the future of display technology, and it's very well showcased on the Samsung Galaxy S5 and most of the Samsung line of products, and this phone is certainly king of the displays currently available right now. Now, under the hoods of these two giant smartphones, phones, we have a very different architecture powering them. Basically, on the iPhone side, we have the Apple architecture, which is Apple's dual-core A8 processor clocked in about 1.4 gigahertz with a M8 motion processor that will detect different aspects of your gyroscopic movements, including elevation, which is very good if you climb a lot of stairs. And it has 1 gig of RAM. On the Samsung S5 side, we have a quad-core Snapdragon 801 chip clocked in about 2.5 gigahertz, and you could have a different octa-core processor depending upon which version of the S5 you have, but most people in North America are going to have this version. And additionally, this version also has 2 gigabytes of RAM. Now, in order to test the real-world differences between these two smartphones, we're going to start our benchmarking, and we're going to look at our core benchmark results to give you an idea of what the differences are and what the A8 is capable of compared to the Snapdragon processor in these two devices. The first set that we're going to take a look at is the Antutu benchmark. Now, looking at the scores, you can see that Antutu says that the Samsung Galaxy S5 is certainly faster when it comes to multiple core computations, but when it comes to single core computations, the iPhone 6 definitely has a huge leg up thanks to its new A8 processor. The next thing that we're going to do is take a look at the external speakers between these two devices and see which one sounds best. Now, moving forward, we're going to take a look at the operating systems between these two phones, and we're not going to go into a huge amount of depth in comparing the features of Android KitKat 4.4 that the Samsung Galaxy S5 is running at compared to the all-new iOS 8 that the iPhone 6 is running. But just to give some quick highlights between each operating system, in the new iOS 8, I really do like the one-hand operations in iOS 8. Very convenient for using with one hand, and it's certainly better than some of the options the Samsung S5 has for its one-hand operation. Now, the Samsung S5 is running TouchWiz UI on top of Android KitKat 4.4. One of the cool things that TouchWiz has been offering for a number of years now is the multi-window view, which is great for multitasking. You can have different apps segmented in half of the screen, and it works in landscape and portrait mode, so you can be browsing the web in one and watching a YouTube video in the other, and it really makes the Android platform pretty powerful in that respect. Additionally, some other things I like is the Smart Stay mode, where it will basically monitor your face and eye movements and turn off the screen if you're not looking at it, or keep the screen on if you are looking at it, as well as some gesture controls, which basically expands some of the ways you can communicate and control your Samsung Galaxy S5. Now, continuing on looking at the unique differences between these two phones, I'm going to highlight the fact that the Samsung Galaxy S5 has a unique feature that a lot of different smartphones don't have, which is a heart rate sensor at the back of the phone, which is definitely handy if you're using your phone for exercising or running. And of course, both have their health-related apps. Both have a fingerprint sensor as well. The iPhone 6 definitely has a more robust sensor. It can read your fingerprint in different orientation, and it does a better job in terms of quickly identifying and scanning your fingerprint, better than what I typically experience on the S5. Now, looking at the connectivity options between these two phones, both have dual band AC compatibility, so great for using the latest generation of Wi-Fi technology, including Bluetooth 4.0, and they both have the integration for their respective smartwatches. Obviously, the new Apple iPhone 6 will use the new Apple Watches coming out soon, so it'll integrate with that for all your health and all your different applications that people are going to be coming up with. And of course, the Samsung is going to use the new Android Wear lineup of devices, including Samsung's own Gear lineup of smartwatches. Furthermore, NFC is something that both devices are compatible with. Specifically with the iPhone 6, Apple has a new method called Apple Pay, which is going to be released wide throughout North America and hopefully throughout the rest of the world soon, which is going to basically enable you to connect your MasterCard, Visa, and your traditional card method of payments through your Apple account and basically use the tap to go feature that is in most of these NFC chips. So pretty exciting stuff if you want to eliminate your wallet and just use your phone to pay for everything. Now, in terms of internal memory, the iPhone 6 comes in 3 different versions, the 16, 64, and 128 gigabyte models, and the Samsung S5 comes in 16 and 32, but the big difference obviously is the Samsung has upgradable memory up to 128 gigs thanks to its rear mounted micro SD card slot. Now, next we're going to move on to the cameras. Now, having an excellent camera is almost a must these days with most of these smartphones, and it's one of the reasons why they cost so much. So, the iPhone 6 has an upgraded camera from last year's 5S. There's not a lot of numbers differences in terms of megapixels and resolutions, but there are some interesting factors that you should consider. Now, in terms of sensor size, for the rear-facing camera, you're looking at a 3rd-inch sensor chip that still has 8 megapixel overall resolution for your stills, but the big thing now is that they have a phase detection autofocusing, which should be a lot faster for your focusing, and you should get clearer pictures as a result of that. In terms of video, we're still looking at 1920 by 1080 at 60 frames per second now, as well as the big highlighted feature of 720p 240 frames per second, which is going to be incredible for your slow motion capabilities. The Samsung S5 has a little bit of a smaller sensor size, but it has a much higher resolution of 16 megapixels, and it also has phase detection autofocusing. Now, the big thing about the video features is it has 2160p video, which is 4K at 30 frames per second, fantastic, as well as 720p at 120 frames per second. So the iPhone is still superior in terms of slow motion video, but in terms of sheer resolution, the Samsung definitely has that up on the iPhone. But the big thing that the 6 doesn't have that the 6 Plus has is the optical stabilization. But other than that, those phones are very similar in terms of camera. So let's go ahead and take a look at a side-by-side comparison between these two cameras and see which one is better for your image quality. Now, here you're looking at the stills capabilities of these two rear-facing cameras side by side. As you can see over here from an online video, there's not a big massive difference between most things. Obviously, in terms of sharpness and clarity, the Samsung is double the resolution, and therefore you do have a lot more ability to blow up the image and get a different crop if you're doing a lot of editing and things like that. But for most of your photos that you're going to post up on your social networking sites, I think both cameras definitely can do the job. Now, for video, the Samsung Galaxy S5 definitely has a huge leg up thanks to its much higher bit rate of 4K 30 frames per second. Now, obviously, 60 frames per second is going to give you more smoother images in terms of clearer motion, but really, at the end of the day, most people watch at 30 frames per second anyways, and the 4K resolution that you get on the GS5 is certainly kind of in a different league compared to the iPhone, although the iPhone definitely doesn't look bad, but I would still probably use the GS5 for most of my video recording needs. Now, the last thing that we're going to take a look at is, of course, battery life. Now, the big difference here is obviously the Samsung has a much bigger battery than the iPhone 6, and one huge difference, again, is going to be the factor that you can actually replace the battery on the Samsung. That's still one of the reasons why people love the Samsung and these Korean phones like LG, because you can access their rear mounted battery. In terms of talk time, we have 21 hours on the Samsung Galaxy S5, and usually really great battery life if you use some of its power saving modes. Now, the iPhone 6 is certainly not bad for its battery. You can definitely get somewhere around 15 hours and up if you use it carefully, but you're definitely limited in terms of having that battery not removable, so you do have to send it to Apple if you want a newer battery or if you have something wrong with it. But again, you can probably get throughout the day without any big issues with the iPhone battery capabilities, but you definitely want to be mindful of making sure you're charging it pretty much every night. But other than that, guys, that's really it. If you have any specific questions about anything I talked about in this video, please make sure to leave that on a comment down below. Make sure to give us a thumbs up if you like the video. It really helps us out tremendously. And check out our other comparisons that we've just done, comparing this new iPhone 6 to the HTC One, as well as the other comparisons on our channel right now. So thanks so much for your support, and we'll see you later. Take care.